What's up, guys? This is Marc with Sound Theory Studio. Hope you're doing well, as always. And today we're going to talk about sweep picking. Now, sweep picking has been probably the most requested lesson on YouTube from my students in person. And I'm not too surprised. It's a really common technique right now, especially in the metal genre. But it has uses in all genres, really. It sounds really, really cool. And it's pretty hard to do. So I think there's a lot of people out there looking for advice, and I know I was one of them at one point, so I can definitely appreciate that. This technique was very hard for me. I'm not too proud to admit it. It took me a long time to get good at it, a lot of months of really hard work and dedication. So first off, that's probably a really good place to start. Be prepared to put in the time. This is one of the most advanced techniques on guitar. I've seen a lot of people on YouTube kind of blow off that technique as being really easy. And if it was easy for them, that's awesome. All I can say is congratulations, like wholeheartedly. That's really cool. But it sure wasn't that way for me, and it wasn't that way for a lot of people. I would say the vast majority of people have a lot of trouble with it. That's why it's such a popular topic to talk about. So if you're having problems with it, and that's why you're here, hopefully I can help you out, and you're in the vast majority, so don't worry about it. A lot of people have trouble with it. But let me show you what I did. Hopefully I can give you a shortcut towards success on this by showing you some of the things I did that really helped it come along, made it easier. And there were some techniques, actually, just beyond practicing it over and over and over, which is really important too. There actually are some techniques that make it a lot easier, at least for me. Now, that's another thing I'll say, is that I've seen a lot of really great sweep pickers on YouTube and in person. And I've seen a few different styles, so there's definitely not one particular way to do this. There's actually several. And I've seen some really wildly different styles, and they all sounded really good. So I'm not going to tell you my way is the way to do it, and it's the best way. I'm just going to tell you it's a way to do it, and it worked for me when nothing else would. And so maybe it'll work for you too, and I hope it does. So let's first start by discussing sweep picking and just define it and talk about why we do it and what the point is, when to use it, etc. So if you're new to the idea of sweep picking, basically think about like when you play pretty much anything on guitar as far as single note melodies like a pentatonic scale or a 7-note major scale, it's usually at least sequences of 2 notes per string. So to give you an example, here's the pentatonic scale, the very famous shape, right? And that was 2 notes per string. Some scales, like the major scale, are 3 notes per string. And you'll find that most melodies on guitar follow some sort of sequence like that. In other words, you get to really utilize your alternate picking by staying on one string at least for a moment to pick 2 or 3 notes before moving on to another string. Well, and sometimes when playing a melody that's not the case. Sometimes you will just hit a note on one string and then move to the next and play more notes. But it's very rare that you find yourself just playing 1 note per string all the way down. But it does happen, especially with arpeggios. Now, arpeggios are the notes of a chord played one at a time. So in other words, here's a C major chord. Now, if you know some basic theory, you know that a C major chord consists of the notes C, E, and G. Now, if you play a combination of those C, E, and G notes together at the same time and let them ring out together, you get a chord. But what if I were to play a C major arpeggio, say up here? So I've got C, E, G, C, E, G. And don't worry about playing that right now, I'll just give you an example. Those are the notes of the C major chord played one at a time and not ringing out together. That's an arpeggio. That's the idea of an arpeggio. Now look what happens when you play an arpeggio, though. A lot of times you end up with a sequence of notes that are 1 note per string over a wide range of strings. It's really difficult to alternate pick that with any amount of speed, right? Because what you're going to end up with is down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So if you're playing at a moderate pace, alternate picking it would be fine. But as you can imagine, if you want to play that really quick, it's going to be really difficult to alternate pick really fast between all these strings, one note per string, and be any good at it. You're going to be picking all over the place, skipping over strings, outside picking, inside picking like crazy, trying to keep up. So sweep picking is developed to allow sequences like that to be played in a much easier way. The basic idea is that instead of going down, up, alternate picking, you're just going to go all down picks to start. So down, 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 up, pull off, up, 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 right? So I had a whole bunch of downstrokes in a row and then a whole bunch of upstrokes in a row. And that allows for much greater speed once you get used to the concept, and it does take getting used to. So all down, all up. There's the idea. That's sweep picking. Now, there's some important things to say about sweep picking, though. It's not just down picks over and over. You're not going pick, 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 pick. You're actually doing a sweeping motion so that you can go really fast and the pick is falling from string to string to string. So it doesn't look like a series of picks. It looks more like kind of like one large pick. Like, for instance, this is probably a really good way to explain it. When you play just a regular old C major chord, you don't go pick, 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 pick. It's just one fluid motion, right? That's the idea of sweep picking. It's going to be that fluid motion. It's not going to be a bunch of individual picks. And that's probably the first thing that people run into trouble with. It's just so natural when you're playing single notes to just do these picking motions over and over, and you don't want that. You want the pick falling from string to string to string to string without all that happening. Just one fluid pick up and down. Now let's zoom in on the right hand and talk about how to do that effectively. I call it the Wheel of Fortune right-handed picking technique, okay? The reason I call it the Wheel of Fortune is, imagine, I'm sure you've all seen the game show at least once, but anytime a contestant spins the wheel, there's like a camera that looks straight down on the wheel, and what you see is this little thing. It looks like a guitar pick, actually, and I'm not sure what they call it, but it shows this thing, and it's pointing at how much money they're going to win. And on the wheel, there's these spokes that come around, and it kind of moves this thing, you know, as they go around over and over. And it moves a little bit, and then it pops back into place. And then another spoke on the wheel comes around and moves it, then pops it back into the place. Well, sweep picking looks a lot like that. As the pick is moving across the strings, it looks almost exactly the same. So let's zoom in, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so now that we're zoomed in, let's take a closer look at this technique. So what we're going to do is the pick is going to fall from string to string to string. So let me show you the wrong way to do it first. So that would be pick, 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 pick. 6 separate motions of picking. That's not what we're going for. What we're going for is for the pick to fall from string to string to string. Big difference. So wrong way. 6 distinct picking motions, to the right way, falling from string to string. All right, now here's how you're going to perfect that motion. What you're going to do is, when you pick string 6, you're going to let the pick fall to string 5, and look what happened. The pick is resting on string 5. It's actually touching it and resting right on it, ready to go. Then when you pick string 5, the pick falls to string 4 and it's resting on it. Again on string 3. Now it's resting on 2. Now it's resting on 1. All the way off the guitar. Then when you go up, it's going to be the same thing but backwards. So upstroke, resting on string 2. Upstroke, resting on string 3. Upstroke, resting on string 4. Upstroke, resting, finally off the board. That movement is what I call the Wheel of Fortune technique, because it just reminds me so much of those spokes moving through the little, I wish I knew what that thing was called, but just moving right through that thing. And it's not just, this kind of thing. It's actually moving right through them. There's a couple things you want to do to get really good at this, and a couple things to pay attention to. One is making sure you're resting on each string as you go through. The other is you want to hold the pick lightly, okay? I don't have a death grip on the pick right now. If I did, it would sound like... That's not what I'm going for. It doesn't sound too bad, but the problem is it's just going to create a lot of resistance, and it's going to make playing with good rhythm very difficult. So what you're going to do instead is, I got a pretty light touch on the pick right now. I'm allowing it to move a little bit in my fingers as it meets these strings, and that allows it to just really glide through. So that's the idea. The lighter grip is going to give you a much easier time going through these strings. You don't want a lot of resistance. You want this to feel easy. And it's going to be hard to get your timing and precision right if you're meeting all that stiff resistance from holding the pick hard. So make sure you don't do that. So what I want you to do is start with, you could even just start with the top 3 strings and just get really good at doing down, resting, down, resting, down, off the board, up, resting, up, resting, up, resting, over and over. Right? Over and over. Over and over. And you're going to do this like hundreds of times, really. I mean, maybe even thousands. But you just want to get really used to that. Now, eventually, you want to do it over all 6 strings. And just get really used to the idea of this and keep doing it until it starts to feel comfortable. We're training your picking hand right now. And that's a big part of this technique, is we're going to train each hand individually. All right. So once you got that, now let's start talking about the left hand. All right, so really quick, let me tell you a little bit about what kind of pick you should use for sweep picking, because that's pretty important as well. So first and foremost, you don't want a pick that's so thin that it has a lot of bend to it. As you can imagine, as the pick goes through strings, if it can bend, it's kind of flopping all over the place, and it's just not going to really be accurate in your picking. A lot of really great players use picks that don't bend, and there is a reason why for that. So what you want to do is have a pick that, it doesn't have to be really thick, but at least just one that doesn't have any give to it, that's not really going to bend very much. And then a pick that has a pointed end can also help quite a bit. The pointed end doesn't make much of a difference for sweep picking the way I sweep pick, but it certainly helps for your alternate picking, so I would go for something like that. And I'll tell you what I use. This is a Dunlop, and it's called the Dunlop Ultex, ULTEX, and it's called the Jazz 3. And this is the XL version, so that's a mouthful. Dunlop Ultex Jazz 3 XL. XL means that this is a little larger than the normal Jazz 3. The normal Jazz 3 is like a tiny little pick, which is really cool for accuracy, but I didn't really like it for playing chords. There's just not much pick to hold on to. It's just this tiny little thing. But the XL version is much more the size of just a regular pick that you see every day. I really like these. They don't seem to wear and tear easily at all, and they're great for all the techniques from alternate picking to sweep picking to everything else. So whether you decide to use this pick or a different one, just make sure that it's thick enough and hard enough to not bend, because that will slow you down ultimately. All right, cool. All right, cool. So we got the right hand. So you've started training on the right hand. I want you to spend a lot of time doing that technique over and over until it feels natural. At first, it's probably going to feel really weird, especially the whole idea of having to pick rest on the next string you're about to play as you go. It's a very strange feel if you've never done it before, and it's going to take a lot of time to get any good at it. Now, let's start talking about the left hand a little bit. Now, we need to train the left hand on its own very much like we were training the right hand. We're going to play a C major arpeggio only with our left hand and not worry about the right hand. Now, a lot of times when I see people sweep picking and they're still trying to develop the technique, they play something like this. It's like... So you see that pull-off is like twice as fast as every other note. And I think the reason is because when they're doing the first 2 or 3 notes, they're doing the sweep picking technique, and maybe they're not so good at it yet, so it sounds kind of slow. But then when they get to the pull-off, that's easy, so they just go and get this really quick, thing. And that's not what you're going for. You really want the timing to be perfect. Every note needs to be the same space, needs to be the same note quality be it quarter notes or eighth notes or 16th notes, they all need to be the same. It needs to sound like clockwork, just one note after the other, each one getting the same amount of time. So. You want to go for a sound like that. You want each note to sound really, really tight and the same amount of time. Now, another thing I hear happen a lot is the first note people play will sound pretty strong, and maybe that high note will sound pretty strong. But all the notes in between are kind of a mess because they didn't take the time to get it to sound clean. So it's like, and you don't want that, right? You want it to sound almost like a piano player playing an arpeggio. It's like every note they play is perfect. You can hear it just fine. It doesn't sound like the low note sounds great, and then there's just a mess, and then there's the high note that sounds great. Every note sounds perfect, and that's the idea for the guitar. You can always tell a great sweep picker because it sounds like a keyboardist. They're playing every note just perfect, and that's what we're going to strive for on guitar. So let's train our left hand to be able to have that timing without worrying about the right hand right now. So here's what you're going to do. We're going to need to mute all 6 of these strings. Now, there's a couple ways to do it. I've seen a lot of people on YouTube I'm not really sure what they are, but I think they're kind of like wristbands almost, and they're putting them over the guitar right around here, and what it does is it prevents all the strings from sounding out. If you have something like that, now's a great time to use it because we want to mute all these strings. If you don't have something like that, what you're going to do is take your right hand and bring it up here and just touch all the strings. I'm not holding them down, just touching them. And so what's going to end up happening is your left hand is free, all the strings are muted, and they're all muted, right? Now we're free to train our left hand. Okay? So what I want you to do is turn on a little bit of gain, and we're going to hammer on the notes of the C major arpeggio, and I'll put some tabs up on the screen for you. But we're going to hit the G note, which is 12th fret of string 3. Then we're going to hammer on to the C note, which is the 13th fret of string 2. Then we're going to hit that E note on string 1, 12th fret. Then we're going to hammer on with our pinky to the G on string 1, which is fret 15. Then pull off, hammer back onto the C, and hammer back onto the G. Now, I highly recommend like a metronome or a drum machine or something like that, but start really slow, and you're going to start playing that arpeggio, making sure every note is the same timing. Now, you might have to start a lot slower than that, and this is going to get your legato technique up too, so that's never a bad thing, right? So eventually build your speed. That's how I trained my left hand individually without my right hand to get really good at arpeggios. And you're going to want to do that a lot, just like the part 1 of this lesson with the right hand. Train both hands individually and keep working on that and strive for the even spacing between the notes. It's going to feel a little weird at first to do this, but it's a really cool technique, and if it really bothers you to have to hold the guitar with your playing or your picking hand the whole time to mute these strings, just get one of those, wristbands or whatever they are. You've seen them all over YouTube, I'm sure. A lot of people use them. And just put it up here, and then you don't have to worry about it, and then you can just sit back and do the hammer-on arpeggio yourself over and over without holding it. So, spend a lot of time on that. Now, step 3, and this will be the end of this video, and this is probably going to be a multi-part video because sweep picking is an advanced technique. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to cover. So I just want to get you started today. Step 3 is after you feel comfortable with this movement and you feel comfortable with this movement, I want you to start playing your first arpeggio with sweep picking, and it's going to be the C major arpeggio, this one down here, that you've been practicing. So you've had your left hand going and you've been playing this. Now let's throw in the pick and combine the two. So what we're going to do is for that first note, it's going to be a downstroke. Okay. Now remember, once you pick that string 3, the pick's going to be resting on string 2, ready to go. Then you're going to hit the C note with your middle finger. and the pick's resting on string 1, ready to go. Finally, you hit the high E string on 12, or on fret 12. Now you've completed your 3 down pick sequence. Down, down, down. Now you're going to go up for the G note, pull off, up, and you're done. That's the entire sequence. Now there was something really important happen there you might have noticed. When I hit that high G note, I'm going upstroke, and the pick is resting on string 2. It's going to be sitting there for a minute because now there's a pull off. Pick still resting on string 2. Finally, I get back to the C note and the pick moves again. So there's a little bit of a pause. So what you end up with is down, 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 up, pull off, up. And then it repeats. Down, 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 up, pull off, up. Down, 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 up, pull off, up. That's what you're going to be striving for. Now, let's talk a little bit about the end of that sequence. So you got down, 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 up, pull off, up. Now the string's going to travel over string 3 so that it can come at it with a downstroke. You don't want to go up, pull off, up, up, because now you're not in a position to repeat the sequence correctly. So you're going to go up, pull off, up, bring the pick over, and start over. Down, 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 up, pull off, up, down, 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 up, pull off, up. Make sure that every note is ringing out clearly. So the key, and you're probably sick of hearing this because you've heard it from me in other videos, and you've probably heard it 1,000 times in other YouTube video guitar lessons. But seriously, the key is number 1, playing to a metronome, and number 2, playing slow, slow, slow. If you can't play it perfectly, you're going too fast. It's that simple. So if you sit down and the only speed you can do this that sounds perfect is just mind-numbingly slow, then do it. So you're going to go. If that's how slow you have to play it, then play it that slow. If you need to play it slower than that, play it slower than that. But make sure it's perfect. If you get impatient and speed up before you're ready, you're going to start playing it sloppy. And every minute you spend on that new speed is just you training yourself to play sloppy. And it's a waste of time. So try not to fall into that pit. My recommendation would be after you are able to play it at a really slow speed and it feels easy and you never mess it up, like you can do it 10 times in a row and it sounds great, and you're almost starting to get bored because it feels so easy. Then what you do is you speed up your metronome about 2 beats per minute, maybe 3, and do it again. Now you can play this as quarter notes, 8th notes, 16th notes, triplets. You know, it just depends. So we count our notes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So since we're dealing with a sequence of 6 notes, I would play it as triplets. So if you have a metronome going, triplet, 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 it's going to sound like that. That's going to be your timing. So make sure you get your timing down first so that you can play it perfectly. So that's a really great way to start, and good luck with that. Spend a lot of time on it. And looks like Tally says hi. Sound Theory's mascot right here. So good luck with that, guys. Spend a lot of time on it. Do it over and over and over. That's a really good start. And what we'll do is next time we'll go from there with part 2 and get a little more advanced and keep moving along, right? So good job, guys. And thanks for your support as always. Please like and subscribe. That always helps me an awful lot. And hope you enjoy the videos. Check out my website at www.soundtheorystudio.com. And we'll see you next time. Tally says bye. See you later, guys. Take care.